This is Stacy McKibben with the Master Communicator podcast, where CEOs, senior leaders, and C-suite executives share their advice. It's 6 questions in 9 minutes because the best leaders know how to share their ideas concisely and quickly. Let's jump right in. Question number 1, in a few sentences, please tell us who you are and what you do.
Hi. Thank you for having me, by the way, Stacy.
Of
Steve
course.
McElfresh. I'm an organizational psychologist, and I'm the founder of HR Futures. We do all things people for growing organizations: program design, implementation, audit and renovation of recruiting operations, interim or fractional HR leadership. We keep places going who are in transition and need people support.
Oh man, I'm so excited to chat with you then. Being like, we love to talk about master communication. I can imagine you've got some ideas to share with us on how to improve our skills in some of those areas.
Well, I hope so. I look forward to it.
Well, let's find out here, shall we? So, as we think about what are we really trying to accomplish when we talk about culture, right? So, when companies say that we're working on culture, what are they really trying to accomplish?
Well, I'm going to take your question, turn it a little sideways, if you don't mind. And that is, what I find, and we work a lot with small to mid-sized companies, is they get overwrought about, culture. Everybody's talking about culture, and there's a big project, there are books, and there's long. And I don't mean that it's irrelevant. I think it's incredibly important, in fact. What I mean, though, is I think many places it's too early to really take on a big culture project, and you can get 80% of the value with 20% of the effort, I believe. Essentially culture light by taking on what we refer to as employee value proposition. What we encourage places to do is work first on that EVP, or employee value proposition. And basically it's answering the question of what's in it for me? What's in it for me as an employee? Owners often think, well, I pay these people a lot of money and I give them great benefits, and isn't that, that's the deal, right? That's it.
That's the exchange.
That's right. And I tell you, that'll get people to come into work. It won't get their hearts. And with their hearts comes their discretionary effort, that little bit more that will help your customers or your product be more creative or more effective. And it's that discretionary effort that differentiates pretty good companies from really great companies. And that we get by thinking through the employee value proposition, thinking through what's in it for me, for your employees.
You're making me think about the difference between participation and engagement, right? And we're often trying to really kind of try to bottle that up. And it sounds like you've got some ideas around that. So how do you go about doing that? How do you really go about maximizing employee value proposition?
I'm a simple guy, so I've got kind of simple answers. I ask owners to think about what I would call the "what's it like" question. The "what's it like" question. What does that mean? What's it like? Think about your employee going to have a drink with somebody, old friend, high school friend they haven't seen for years and years. What are two of the first questions they ask? Where do you work? What's it like? Very often, because I ask these questions and I see people, the answer to what's it like is, it's a job. It's a job. I get paid, I get the benefits. It's a job. And there, immediately we know that discretionary effort is not going to be there. So rather than have your folks say it's a job, think about what it takes to capture their hearts. And what if their answer was something like, I get to do work I never thought I'd be able to do. Or, they really we work our butts off, and they really recognize it, support us, and make sure we've got what we need. Or, they're helping me get back in school and get my degree. I'm actually going to be able to finish my degree on the job. Or, I'm really proud of what we do in the community. I think we're making a difference. Not only is it a great product, but I think we're really improving things around here. My point is, there's no single employee value proposition. It starts with who you are as an owner, who you are as a company, who you are as a product, where you sit in the community. But if you don't have one, then all you've got is, it's a job.
Yeah. As you think about that, I'm sure you've worked with organizations on how to implement this whole idea of the employee value proposition. Do you find that there's a generalized value proposition that most people adopt, or do they somehow evolve this individually for each of them?
Yeah. So at some level, it always involves recognizing the employees as individuals and who they are. But the specific value proposition for a company really does vary, again, based on community, on product, on owners, on finances. So for instance, we worked with a company where they said, one of our fundamental, and this is after some real looking inside their hearts, one of our fundamentals is we need to continually evolve our product, and we want this to be a learning culture. We want this to be a place where everybody feels like they can learn and grow. We did a variety of things, but the single item that had the biggest impact, we installed a buy a book program. Buy any book you want off Amazon. You've got an expense account for it. The CFO goes, but what we found is it cost on a steady state about a little over $4 a person per month, which is not nothing, but people really took it to heart. They said, God, they're serious. They really mean, we want to have a learning culture. And a learning culture is not right for everyone. For other places, for instance, Cisco, one of the things that really differentiates Cisco is they have a very active volunteer program. They want people out in the community. They have emergency boxes. You think about the big boxes you see on boats. They have several of them equipped to drop into a community that has been devastated by a natural disaster. And people come from all parts of Cisco to staff that communication center to provide support when a community's been devastated. Those things mean a lot to those folks. They stop and say, this is a special place. Different employee value propositions for different companies, but having something that's special that you can answer the what, or your people can answer the what's it like question, helps you stand apart, helps you get that extra heart that people have available. Now, there is two different issues here, which is one is a generalized proposition for the company, which I think is very important, but also to have your managers responsible for delivering on that employee value proposition. This isn't something that goes on the wall. It's not, a loose-side award that you give every month. It's a reality of what I'm like and how I'm treated every day. And so your managers have to embody this. That has to be part of who they are. And it's your responsibility to make sure that they do.
I love that, because I was going to ask you the question of how do you do that? And I think, you're giving a lot of great insights to that, but it really then makes me think about, so what happens in those environments where you start to talk about doing something like this, but you don't actually actualize it, you don't bring it to life? What happens in that scenario?
So the worst case, if your fundamental deal really is, it's about pay and benefits, that's fine. You can be a good employer. You could have a decent workplace and people will work for you. You may not get their hearts, but they'll work for you. But to be a decent employer who doesn't offer real employee value proposition, but say, hey, listen, we're about exceptional recognition, or we're about everybody being able to grow in their job, or we're about, really making a difference in the community. And folks look around and say, where's the sign of that? Where's the signal?
Where's the evidence of that?
Yeah, exactly. Now what you've done is you not only are not capturing the hearts and minds, you've set yourself up to be hypocritical, which means this has got to start with what is truly in the heart of the owners and leaders. I mean, it really does start with that. That has to be something they really mean and feel. But if it's not something that's deliverable, then you simply set yourself up to be a hypocrite. It's worse than just being an okay employer.
I love all of these ideas, Steve. And again, every time I talk to you, I always walk away with some new nuggets that I know I can put into place. But let me ask you my final question, which is, who else should be on the show? What other successful professionals should we be paying attention, such as yourself?
I was talking to a fellow last week who I would recommend. Lou Adler is one of probably the top 5 or 6 names in recruiting and how to think differently about recruiting employees and setting up recruiting functions. And Lou's preparing to retire. I think he's got such incredible knowledge that I think anything we can do to memorialize it and give him a platform to communicate it, if he's willing to come out of his beach house in Newport, where he gets to put his feet in the sand and wiggle in the salt water. If he's willing, I think it would be a service to your community of listeners.
I would so appreciate that. And I appreciate that. And our audience knows that we'll go find them and see if we can't get them on the show.
All
Well,
right.
Steve, it's such a pleasure to have you here. And hopefully you'll come back and join us for a future event at some point, and come back on the show. But I'm curious, if folks wanted to reach out and introduce themselves, how might they find you?
Well, website is hrfutures.com, and you could reach me directly at Steve M, that's Steve M as in Mary, at hrfutures.com. And both of those will work. And I'd love to talk to anybody that comes from your audience. I'd love to talk to.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We look forward to having you back again soon. And
Okay.
this is Stacy McKibben with the Master Communicator Podcast. For more ideas and insights, please do go check us out at www.concilioteam.com. And we look forward to seeing you again next time. Take care.